Are you passionate about powered parachutes and eager to share that excitement with others? Becoming a certified flight instructor or CFI for powered parachutes might be your perfect next step. There are very few CFIs in the sport, and there is a real need for quality instruction. In this video, we'll talk about how to become a CFI, address common challenges, and talk about some of the older rules that still confuse many people today. The path to becoming a CFI for powered parachutes can seem complex, especially since there are old rules, new rules, and different pathways for potential instructors depending on where they're starting. A major shift occurred in 2004 when the FAA introduced the Sport Pilot rules, leading to the discontinuation of most of the ultralight training exemptions. The ultralight training exemptions that exist today are very different from those in the past. They only exist for very limited aircraft that must meet all of the limitations of the Part 103 ultralight regulations, except that they're allowed to have 2 seats. Even more limiting is that aircraft that are operated under these exemptions can only be used for training, which implies that they must always be flown with an instructor and a student on board. Normal flight isn't allowed unless the second seat is removed and the aircraft is flown as a pure ultralight. There is certainly a lot of confusion and probably content for more than one video. This video is going to focus on pilots or potential pilots who want to become FAA certified flight instructors for powered parachute. Let's demystify the steps to becoming a powered parachute CFI. The first step is earning your sport pilot rating for powered parachutes. This requires a minimum of 12 hours of flight time in a powered parachute, including 10 hours of flight training from an authorized instructor and 2 hours of solo flight training. You also need to log 20 takeoffs and landings to a full stop. Of those 20, 10 have to be solo takeoffs and landings to a full stop. And finally, you need to perform 1 solo flight with a landing at a different airport with a straight line distance of at least 10 nautical miles between takeoff and landing locations. Steps are a lot easier for FAA certified pilots transitioning from other categories of aircraft like airplanes, but that's not the subject of this video. This first step is a big deal all by itself. It involves study, flight training, and testing. The testing includes both an FAA knowledge test and a checkride. But if you think about it, it makes sense that you should become a pilot before you attempt to become an instructor. Yes, sometimes FAA rules make sense. The next step is going to take a lot more time since it involves a lot more flying. To become a flight instructor, you need to fly at least 100 hours of total flight time as a pilot, which must include certain kinds of flying, including 75 hours as pilot in command in powered aircraft. That means that not all of your flight time needs to be in powered parachutes. If you're an airplane pilot, you can count that time, but you still need to fly 50 hours in powered parachutes. Not all of that 50 hours needs to be as a pilot in command. It turns out that 35 of those 50 hours can be dual instruction that you've received from an existing powered parachute CFI. So yes, the time you spent getting your sport pilot rating for powered parachutes counts towards your CFI requirements. You also need 15 hours of cross-country flight time. But again, not all of it has to be in powered parachutes if you're a pilot with an airplane, rotorcraft, or another rating. But still, at least 5 hours of your cross-country time needs to be in a powered parachute if you want to be a powered parachute CFI. And finally, you need 15 hours as pilot in command in a powered parachute that is a light sport aircraft, which, when you think about it, is a pretty low amount. That minimum amount is only going to apply to the odd combination of somebody who already has a pilot certificate, but still needs 35 hours of dual instruction in a powered parachute. If a sport pilot certificate for powered parachutes is your only FAA rating, the bottom line is that you need to fly a total of 100 hours in an n-numbered powered parachute, with 15 of those hours being cross-country time. If you're a retread, that's someone who came to powered parachutes from another category of aircraft, it means that you'll probably only need a total of 50 hours in powered parachutes, including 5 hours of cross-country time in a powered parachute. That's because you probably met all of the other requirements in whatever else you hold a pilot rating for. Either way, you will need some specific dual instruction to prepare you for your check ride. You need to learn to fly from the back seat, to train others, and how to deal with flight challenges and emergencies created by your future students. And when you're totaling your time for your CFI flight experience requirements, you can count that additional dual time as part of that. Next up, there are 2 required knowledge tests you need to complete. The The first is called the Fundamentals of Instruction, or FOI. This multiple choice test is required for anyone who wants any kind of FAA instructor rating. It's a generic test that applies to all categories of aircraft and ground instructors. Some people are exempt from this requirement though. You do not have to take the Fundamentals of Instruction test if you already hold a flight instructor certificate or ground instructor certificate issued by the FAA, or you hold a teacher certificate issued by a state, county, city, or municipality, or you are employed as a teacher at an accredited college or university. The other knowledge test you need to take is the Flight Instructor Sport Powered Parachute Test. This multiple choice exam assesses your specific knowledge related to instructing in powered parachutes. Happily, this test is very similar to the Sport Pilot Powered Parachute Knowledge Test that you probably already took when you worked on your original pilot rating. So most of your study for this test will be a review. The last step is taking your checkride. If you're applying for your first instructor certification, it is known as a practical test. If you're transitioning from another CFI rating, it's known as a proficiency check. The difference is in who can provide the testing. A practical test needs to be conducted by a designated pilot examiner, or DPE, for powered parachutes. The proficiency check needs to be conducted by a CFI for powered parachutes. In either case, you need to be recommended for your check ride by a separate CFI for powered parachutes. If you pass your check ride, you can immediately begin providing dual flight instruction in powered parachutes. Embarking on the journey to become a powered parachute CFI is both challenging and rewarding. By understanding and following the current FAA requirements, you can turn your passion into a profession, guiding new pilots as they take to the skies. Easy Flight offers specific instruction for becoming a powered parachute flight instructor. If you're interested in powered parachute flight instruction in either the Midwest or in Florida, please visit the link to easyflight.com in the description. And if you got some value from this video, please remember to grace me with a like. Thanks so much for watching, and blue skies.